Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Gorecom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out big news. If you've been following the great space race that's taken place over the last 2 years, including India landing on the moon in August, SpaceX's Falcon Heavy billion-dollar asteroid mission for NASA, and even most recently Blue Origin's launch of the new Shepard rocket, then you're going to love this interview with Royal Helium, and specifically Dean Nawada, the company's manager of corporate development over at Royal Helium. Why are you going to love it? They've already got 3-year purchase commitments from 2 offtake partner agreements in the major North American aerospace and space launch industries. That's why we tied in the intro there. It includes a major space launch company. Nobody knows the ID. I'm assuming other than Dean and the close circle over Royal Helium. But outside sources have narrowed it down to one of NASA, SpaceX, which is Musk's company, Blue Origin, which is Bezos' company. And that's because helium plays a critical role in space launches. And the big news we talk about today, Royal Helium commences deliveries of purified helium to their first U.S. end user customer. Dean, welcome back, my friend.
Hey, thanks a lot, George. It's been like just a monumental couple of weeks there, you know. You have no idea, you know, the few of us that started out in 2016 and here we are today. It's been quite the week, George.
Yeah, listen, it's been quite a week, an incredible day, and a lot of investors have been waiting to see the trucks rolling. So you've got video for us. Why don't you share with everybody so we all kind of celebrate together for those who aren't on X necessarily. Share that video. Let's see the trucks rolling, my friend.
Let's see if I can do this for you there, George. This is
if you're able to help get helium to space, I'm confident you're going to be able to show us the video by sharing the screen.
Alrighty. Can you see that there, George?
Yeah, so it looks like a picture of the truck.
Okay.
Let's see if we got... Here we go.
It's not at night. It's very, very, very early in the morning.
Right. That's a beautiful... Hey, it's almost like you want to hear that quote from Dennis Hopper. I love the smell of helium in the morning. Look at that, Dean.
Yeah, so this was
go ahead.
This was super early in the morning, like about 6 o'clock Mountain Standard or Calgary time. Anyway, yeah, 6 or 5, I forget. Very early in the morning. Off he goes.
Yeah. And you got the truck, and you got the truck blaring its horn there.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
The guy filming on his phone is our lead supervisor.
Good job, guys.
On site. That was
so
Quinn.
Dean, the big question, if we can ask you, where's the truck going? Come on, just between friends, because everybody wants to know. I know you can't answer, but tongue in cheek, you know, we'd all love to know where it's going. This is a monumental feat. All right, so Andrew Davidson, in his quote, said, "We're proud to be able to say that the Steville plant is the first of its kind in the world and has the lowest carbon footprint and emissions amongst any of its peers globally." You know, first plant of its kind. Let's talk about that and what other feats of greatness you guys achieved here.
Yeah, so I mean, this is one of the things that's key with the plant is really an industry leader as to what it does. So in our case, the carbon footprint is very, very small. Why? It's actually called a PSA, or a pressure swing absorption / cryogenic unit. That's the big difference. these aren't really new technologies. When you process natural gas, that is actually what happens. But most helium plants around the world that are primary helium are called PSA membrane plants, where they basically force the gas through membranes to separate out some of the other components. Whereas what we do is you cool the gas stream down in stages. Well, first you take the CO2 out and it's liquefied. And what we're looking at doing there is to sell food grade CO2. So the CO2 is utilized. Then the gas stream is cooled down in stages. The first stage, I'm not an engineer, but I'll sort of give you the broad strokes here. The first stage is it's cooled down somewhere just beyond minus 80 degrees C when the natural gas or the methane starts liquefying, so you can take it out. Here's one of the keys. We have a fuel gas module at site, and it takes that and turns it into fuel that runs the generators that runs the whole plant. So essentially, the plant is self-powered. The
And then,
other
Dean,
key
by the way,
component.
not to interrupt you on the mechanics, but I'm hearing more and more that low carbon footprint, low emissions is critical to all these, new companies, new energy companies like you guys. We've got another client who's providing, high purity silicon for batteries and things like that. And all the end users are saying it's not just price anymore. It better have that low or non-existent carbon footprint. Otherwise, we can't use your product. So is that a big differentiator for Royal Helium?
Oh, for sure. At the end of the day, it's twofold. Number one is yes, just several days before that first shipment went out, we had our inauguration, and the government officials there. I mean, that was their key point. They want to see the smallest carbon footprint possible, and the second component, obviously, is economics. Economics for us. The plant being self-powered, obviously the operating expenses is very, very, very low. To give you an idea of what kind of low I'm talking about, with our current offtake agreements that you just talked about, which is known, it's been news release. So to convert it to Canadian dollars, you're talking about, call it $740 per MCF. That's our sales price, and it's fixed. Because the plant is essentially self-powered, the operating expense, according to Research Capital Corporation, a major brokerage firm here in Canada based out of Toronto, their office in Calgary are the guys that have helped us out. Their analyst estimates that the operating cost is about 10 cents an MCF. So you heard that right.
On $740, that's diabolical.
Sale price, 10 cents operating cost, plus approximately he estimates $3,000 a month in fixed operating costs. So nevertheless, if you do the math, I mean, this is in gross margin is well in excess of 95%, right? So it's two-pronged. And, it goes beyond that too, George, in the sense that as far as carbon footprint goes, all other helium plants in the world are generally natural gas plants that have a byproduct of helium. But those natural gas plants obviously are producing natural gas, right? Whereas we are producing a little bit of natural gas as a byproduct, like single-digit percentages, and that gas is actually used to the full extent to run the plant, right? So,
and that gives you a huge competitive advantage, Dean, because if George Com Helium comes along and says, "Oh, I can sell helium to you for $700 MCF, Mr. End User, but my carbon footprint is high and my emissions are high," despite the fact I'm cheaper than Royal Helium, I'm not going to get the business, right? Because the end user is going to say, "Hey, George, it's not enough to be $40 per MCF cheaper. Your emissions are and your carbon footprint's too high." Am I right about that?
Sure. You know, so at the end of the day, and I think it's quite important, like even some of the primary helium, the few primary helium plants around the world, the PSA membrane plant versus ours, the cryogenic plant uses one third or uses only one third the power to begin with. Never mind that we're self-powered. And for sure, the customers, there's two things that they can look at. One of the world's largest or the world's largest producers of helium and sellers of helium, Russia, Qatar, the Middle East, and Algeria. So not only that we have the smallest carbon footprint of any facility out there, we're in Canada, George, one of the friendliest jurisdictions in the world, right? So, you know, it doesn't matter. Obviously, the biggest consumer close to us is the United States. We're neighbors, we're friends. Obviously, that's where our helium is going, is to the state. But you know, places like Japan and Taiwan as well are looking for not Western world supply of helium,
Friendlier
and
jurisdictions.
everybody wants the greenest supply of helium.
Yeah,
So
and
jurisdiction and it's green.
in Canada, they don't have that fear, that supply chain fear, where Canada might look to weaponize its helium and prevent it from going to Japan or to customers in the US for political reasons. And I think that safety, that security, that supply safety is another major factor. And on that note, I want to talk about this, that this isn't just an important corporate deal here. You kind of touched on it, but I want to read the quote again from Andrew Davidson, the CEO, said, "This first delivery occurred just days after the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, headlined the inauguration of the Steveville Helium Purification Facility, which is going to connect to Canada and the whole of North America, delivering purified helium to critical industries such as healthcare, semiconductor manufacturing, and small modular reactors for energy." So strategically for Alberta, and I think you got another photo there as well, this is
Mm-hmm.
for Alberta and Canada, Steveville is really important.
Oh, 100%, George. And so this was literally on Saturday morning, this past Saturday morning, and we had our grand inauguration. It was headlined by Premier Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta. Oops, sorry about that. See if I can do this. We actually held it right at the facility itself, present. It's hard to see in this picture, but it gives you a good overview of where and how this all happened. The mayor of Brooks was there. A federal MP from Bow River was there. Newell County, several of the council members and the Reeve were present and all spoke. And as you mentioned, of course, high on their list of what they were speaking about, other than the economic benefits to Alberta and Canada, was the green aspect of our particular plant. But you know, Canada, yes, it's a big deal for us. And in the case of this particular plant, another thing that we can be proud of as being Canadians, you know, this whole plant was designed, engineered, and built by Albertans in Alberta, in Canada, and literally it is industry leading, as Andy says, first of its kind in the world, like literally in the world.
Yeah.
Right here in the friendly jurisdiction of Southern Alberta, Canada.
So this kind of answers the question, because you and I both saw on X, formerly Twitter, that some investors had a little anxiety, for lack of a better term, over the first delivery, you know, the commencement taking a little while longer than expected. But Dean, is it fair to say now that people see the magnitude of this, the sophistication you talked about earlier, first of its kind in the world, its importance to Alberta, Canada, and the world, that it really didn't take that long. It's just that sometimes these things take a little longer, but there was never any reason to doubt, correct?
Oh, sure. And, we're really fortunate, in that other video, the guy that took that video, our supervisor, he's actually started up helium plants before and actually ran and managed them. As you know, George, we also have Brent Ziegler from who spent 20 years at Air Products in Pennsylvania. He's the guy that he built the world's largest helium storage plant. He has actually had his hands on almost every single helium purification plant in the world, including Russia, Qatar, and Algeria, and of course the States. So we've been working on this for the last several weeks. Uh, I've never done this before, so I don't, it's difficult to say if it's going fast or slow. But they've all have all the confidence in the world, and they're saying, no, this is normal startup for this type of plant. I'll tell you, George, you have to, the way to look at it is, the gas that comes out of the ground and then piped underground to the facility on the left-hand side of the photo. It, call it 15 million. I'll just use the plant's numbers here. Out of 15 million cubic feet a day, this whole facility that you see here, it's essentially taking out 99.55% of all the molecules out of the gas stream in order to leave the helium. It is an absolute amazing feat what this thing does. The redundancy and the recycle aspect of this plant is unique, and I think maybe some people don't have an understanding how that works. So, kind of working from the left to the right, the gas comes out of the ground on the left-hand side, it works its way through. The last component is on the far right with the four towers, sort of on the end there. That is the last stage, the PSA, pressure swing absorption. And at the plant, there is no storage, right? So I think some people have the idea that like there's this big tank of helium and the truck backs up to it and you plug a hose into it and turn it on. No, the trailers, of which we have 4, they are actually the storage tanks for the plant. So as the helium, as you come through this whole thing and you take out 99.55% of everything else, and what comes out at the end is the helium, which is 99.999% helium, it goes directly into the trailers. Now, we're talking about 3 decimal point percentages pure helium. So I'll give you another example.
Called 5.9. That's called 5.9. 99.999 is 5.9. 5N. Sorry, 5N.
Yep. 5.9's helium. So as an example, like when we took delivery of these trailers, inside these trailers on the right-hand side, there are 4 cigar tubes, 40 feet long. What we did is when they arrived, so we purged them with nitrogen. So in other words, to get the atmosphere out, the air that we breathe. So it's purged with nitrogen. Then as you fill them, so off of the PSA, then the 5.9's helium gets pumped in, right? But there might be bits of nitrogen left over in there, of course, right? So that's no good. So you kind of repurge it. So you pump 5.9's helium in, and there's a return line that comes. There's a return line that comes out of it, and if that return line is, 99% helium. It's got some nitrogen in there. You just keep pumping it through until the return line says 5/9 helium. Then you know inside the tube or the tank is 5/9 helium. But the key here is, George, is none of that helium is wasted. So as the return line comes out, it comes all the way back to the middle unit, which is right here, which is the cryogenic unit, and it can re-clean, recycle that helium that was used to fill the tank, right? And then it would goes through here, back through here, and it can go back out through here. But constantly,
Yeah, that's what makes
the
us.
raw
That's
gas
what makes
stream
us
is
all
going through.
one of a kind. That's what makes us one of a kind, and why there really wasn't a delay with some of the anxiety out there. Just this is perfection, and the guys weren't like a fine wine. You weren't going to rush it until it was ready. By the way, Dean, for everybody listening at
Yeah,
home, discovering Royal Helium for the first time, in non-scientific terms, what role does helium play in the world of space launch? Because one of the customers you have an offtake agreement with is a quote a major space launch company, a major North American space launch company. That's all we know. But really quickly, what role does helium play? Like, is helium going up into space with these rockets, or what's happening?
correct. So um, with a with a rocket that's leaving Earth, the propellant is usually either liquid hydrogen or LNG, basically. So it's a fuel that burns. Um, the problem is you want it when it burns, you want it to the thrust to go down and out. As you get a little further up, there's less gravity, right? So the helium itself is used almost like a purge gas uh, in order for it to push the propellant down as the fuel burns, because obviously you don't want the fuel to start burning going up into the empty
Right.
space of the tank, right? So it's like
Wow.
a plunger that pushes it, makes sure that it goes down. Now, why helium? Helium is inert and it's light and it's cold, right? So it helps cool things, but it's also light. But most importantly, it's inert. Um, it doesn't burn. It doesn't react with any other element. You see, so it's the perfect purge gas for a rocket.
So given the fact that space launches look like they're only I've seen the data all over the world are just increasing yearly and have I mean I think we're going to be a space exploration planet. We're going to be traveling, exploring. Is it safe to say that just in that one vertical alone, and there are many verticals for Royal Helium, that you've got a decade or a couple of decades of just increasing demand for helium, correct?
Oh, I think so. I mean, obviously, it's not really my wheelhouse. I can only see what everybody else sees, right? Um, MRI machines still account for, probably about a third of the use of helium worldwide. But that's growing at probably a 5 to 6% CAGR. Yeah, but aerospace, for example, depending on whose numbers you use, it's growing anywhere from 15 to 25%
Yeah, yeah.
per year. Again, these are just things that you and I see, right? Like, so for example, with Elon Musk's SpaceX, they're launching their Starlink satellites in the air. Last year, I don't know if they did 60 launches, and I think I see one almost every week. I think their target is like 100 or more this year, so almost double, right? For those guys. And to give you an idea, George, like what the usage is for rockets that you asked about, um, depending on the rocket, whether it's a Falcon 9 or the Blue Origin or the big ones like the Super Heavy or what have you. Each launch uses about 1 to almost 3 million cubic feet of helium, gaseous helium. To give you an idea how much that is, it's approximately 1 million cubic feet would be approximately 4 of those trailers in the picture. Each launch. So it doesn't matter whose company it is,
that's a
that's sort of
lot
the
of
size.
volume. That's a lot of volume multiplied by a lot of launches that we're seeing taking place. Yeah,
Yep.
you're right, because India's going up there. Musk is going up there with his Starlink satellites. I mean, everyone is racing to space. So thanks for giving us that overview. That's awesome. Let's get back to ground for a second. Now that the
Mhm.
trailer flow has started, are you up to full capacity yet? What does the cadence look like if you're not at full capacity to getting up to full capacity?
Sure. So over the past several weeks on starting this plant up, um, so this plant is entirely operational right now, but it's also set to be fully automated. So a lot of the work that's been going on as the plant is running is making minor adjustments as well as testing redundant systems. And for example, that recycle system, that's all computer
Yep.
programmed and adjusted for temperature and flow. And so these are the things that have been going on for the last several weeks and continue to this day as well. And but the thing is, all the while this is happening, actual 5 nines helium is produced, right? So we make sure that, obviously we could just vent it and wait, but no, we can actually put it into the trailer um, and send it off as we did yesterday morning. I think so. Yeah, yesterday morning.
By the
So,
way, you can take off your screen share also because we got the picture while we're talking. Uh,
yeah,
just see more of our beautiful faces.
yeah.
Hey,
Okay.
Dean,
Hey,
now
George,
given
do you want me to run you through what all these things are, or no? Do we have time?
no, because we did that in our last video.
Yeah.
I thought
Okay.
that was great. If you
Okay.
remember, we
Okay.
did a whole walkthrough. So I think that was fantastic. Let me ask you a
There we go.
question.
Sure.
Now that listen, you have two offtake agreements at each at their own prices, that account for 100% of your production. So you guys must know what your revenue numbers are going to look like. Because there comes a point when you're going to report that to the market. If you haven't already, but I don't recall you guys haven't reported that to the market, where you're going to say, hey, for 2024, once we're at full capacity, we expect revenues of X or somewhere around X for 2024. Would that be forthcoming? Because Research Capital put out that price target of $1.15, so they've obviously been crunching some numbers.
Mhm.
What do you think about those things coming out?
Okay, two things. I'll finish answering your first question or your previous question is I don't know when we'll be running at a steady state, full capacity. We are working our way there now. Um, Again, this is fine tuning and minutia that has to be done. 3 decimal points of a percent that needs to be shipped out. And then this thing is meant to run 24/7, 365 days a year. So, and it's all automated and computer controlled. So everything has to be adjusted just right because there's no, I shouldn't say nobody on site, but it's automated, right? So once we kind of get to that stage, we'll certainly let the market know, but we're well on our way. Obviously, we shipped our first trailer out yesterday, so we're well on our way to doing that. As far as the economic numbers go, obviously we have our internal numbers, but most of those figures are already published by us or news released by us. So you have our sales figures, make sure you convert them to Canadian dollars or vice versa, convert our cost dollars into US dollars if you use US dollars. So all those numbers are there, and I would invite people to have a look at Bill Newman's Research Capital research report. He uses both the U.S. and the Canadian dollar, so you can sort of follow it through. Are we going to give guidance for the year? No, I don't. I don't think so. But obviously, we have to report our revenues on a quarterly basis once a year, just like any other Canadian public company. So those numbers will come through. And like I say, for most people, if you're in oil and gas and you have an operating company, you can sort of start guessing, okay, what their cost basis is and their operating expense. But the price of the natural gas might go up or down. And so you kind of got to factor in, well, what's the price going to be in 3 months, third quarter, fourth quarter, fifth quarter, first quarter. And so that, there's a little bit of gray area there when you try to figure this out, because you got to figure out what your sales price is. Some of the larger companies, of course, will sell their product in the futures market so they can hedge themselves. But hedging
I was about to
also
say, you guys
costs
are probably going to do some of that, right? Some hedging, at least
you. Yeah.
some of it, just to get so you know.
So
So the swings aren't too volatile, up or down.
yeah. So at the end of the day, for us, with what we've got so far, as you know, 100% of the capacity of Steveville has been allocated to the major North American space launch company. So the price is known for 3 years. That is the price. So it doesn't matter if the price goes up or down. That is the price. Capacity of the plant is known. It's a mechanical figure. Now, whether once we get to
But
steady
there are two
state,
the two off takes at different prices, by the way, unless I'm misunderstanding, make up the full capacity at Steveville, right? Because the
yep,
first contract was 50% of your capacity, the second one was for the other 50%. So it's a two agreements, separate agreements of two different companies that make up the full picture, correct?
yeah, no, exactly. So because they're 50-50, it's pretty easy to come up with your
Right.
selling price, and the average price is, as I say, it's $538 US per MCF, which equals about $740 Canadian per MCF. So that figure's known. So it all depends on how much helium we produce, then sell per quarter, if you want to put it that way, or per year, or per day if you want. But although,
Yeah, I'm
like I
sure
say,
people are going
all
to be
those
doing back of the napkin math pretty soon if they haven't done it already, as to
yeah. So
what's your full
the known
capacity,
numbers
what
are
that.
these, George. The selling price is known for the next 3 years, $740 Canadian. An estimate, and it's Research Capital's estimate on an operating cost, is 10 cents per MCF.
That's gone.
An estimated by Research Capital is $3,000 fixed operating cost, right? So guy that supervises this thing sits at the computer. The royalty rate where we are, and our both wells that we have here, 4.25% royalty rate, which is substantially cheaper than anything that has hydrocarbons in it, because that's generally speaking over 16%, right? So again, those are the numbers, and you can
Those
go
are the
figure it
variables
out.
everyone has to work with.
Sure. Will all depends on how close to capacity that we run on average, I suppose, for the year or the quarter or whatever you're looking at.
Last question for you. Most companies would say, hey, we love it. We got Steveville. It's 100% sold out. We got a great price, $740 per MCF. We got some variables we got to control in there: natural gas, U.S. exchange, Canadian dollar exchange rates, things like that. But we're good. And no one would blame you if that was your position. But that's not the position for Royal Helium, because now that Steveville is taken care of and on its way, and today we just focused on Steveville, but if you could give me 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes at most, of what's next, not including Steveville, because you guys have more ground, more wells that you want to have produce and repeat this process over and over again. So what does that side of the company look like in 2024?
Oh, so for us, this is the most exciting part for us. Having this as a sort of a template and a milestone. We have over 1 million acres of land in both Alberta and Saskatchewan. We have 4 standing wells, one of which is here as well, and that are already drilled, and they just need to be tested. And what we'd like to do, our sort of 12 to 18-month target here, is to have at least 2 more of these plants and associated wells up and running, right, in the next 12 to 18 months.
Like we're talking
George,
about up and running plants in 12 to 18 months.
That's the idea. Yeah. So everything should happen on an accelerated basis with this Steveville being the template. I mean, the numbers off of it on its own is fantastic, right? But if we could multiply that by 2, 3, 4, depending how far out you want to go, like George, you and I talked about this before. Like my analogy is this: there's a company here in Alberta called Whitecap Resources, WCP, on the Toronto Stock Exchange. I think it pays like an 8% dividend yield. They're buying their stock back. It's oil and gas, though. Okay, George. But they started out in 2009. They were doing 300 BOEs a day, barrel of oil a day. I think it was 3 or 4.
For everyone at home, that's barrels of oil equivalent.
Yeah. So in 2009, I think that was off of 4 wells or so. By 2014, they did 14,000 barrels a day. Last year, they did 150,000 barrels a day. So the way that we're looking at this is, this Steveville project is kind of like Whitecap Resources' first 300 barrels a day. I mean, we are so excited. We've got 4 standing wells that are already drilled to test. So can we have another Steveville at Val Marie? Can we have another Steveville at Ogama? We've got Climax as well. Do we have another Steveville at Climax? That one could be substantially larger, but you know what I'm saying, right? And that's not it. We've got near term here, I guess, well, in 2024, we've got some ground, some 150 kilometers to the south of here in Alberta that we want to drill. And very exciting, because it's sort of the same formation that the wells here are. And, could that be another Steveville? We've got targets not only at Climax, but north of Climax at Cadillac, Bengoff out in the east. I don't want to say it's endless, but the runway is very clear and very long. So this is,
well, you got the
so
visibility to it.
It's just,
You got the visibility,
yeah,
on the balance of probabilities to at least 1 or 2 more Stevevilles, it sounds like, from what you already know. And then who knows what it holds after that.
That's just the near term low hanging fruit. Those are the wells that we've already drilled. We've got dozens of targets to still drill yet. This is, again, in your brain. You think like that Whitecap Resources model. It's not like going from 300 to 350 to 700 over 5 years. Went from 300 to 14,000 to 150,000 barrels a day.
And by the way, for everyone at home, we don't want anyone to hold Dean to some kind of financial advice standard where he's trying to tell you that, Royal Helium is going to grow at that pace. It may, but Adidas wanted to say that to cover us off, so nobody thought that nobody's going to say, "Hey, we're going to grow the
No,
same
no, no.
as Whitecap or whatever." But point made that there's a progression of growth, and that you know, fingers crossed, all things go well or as well as it can be. You and I and Andrew and Spiro and everybody else will be sitting doing these interviews for another 5, 7, 10 years. Just keep talking about the growth, God willing.
Exactly. That is the point, George, uh, you look at Steveville and you go, holy, that is, so profitable and et cetera. But it's only the beginning, George. And it's not like we have to go acquire more ground or go explore in other areas. We've already got 1 million acres of land and dozens of targets already sort of picked out. It's already within the company. Um,
Well, for
we don't have to go get
2023,
it.
for 2023, I think I speak on behalf of all shareholders where I say we congratulate you. We thank you as fellow shareholders that we've gotten to this first massive milestone where the first plant is up, the trucks have started rolling, and we now have the blueprint. As you said, the other ones are just going to happen faster because Steveville is the blueprint. And we celebrate this. And then in 2024, we look forward to what more the great team, the proven team at Royal Helium, proven because it's no longer an idea. You guys aren't just talking the talk, you've walked the walk. You're supplying massive companies in the aerospace and space launch world. One day, hopefully, we'll find out who they are because I think one of us is going to put GPS trackers on those things as they go down, maybe stop at a truck stop and, and find out where they end up. You never know if that kind of espionage takes place, but
Yeah.
amazing, buddy, to you and obviously Andrew, the whole team. Well done. What a great way to end off 2023 and give shareholders this really nice Christmas present that's going to hopefully pay dividends for years and years to come, my friend.
No, thanks so much, George. It's like I say, it's culmination for some of us, 7 years worth of work.
Yep.
So this is like an amazing milestone for us, and it's opening the gate for everything else that we want to do. And also, George, you can't forget that the Steveville site. We've had over 150 people from various companies and groups, whether like Obsidian Engineering and RJ Design Solutions that built this thing, and all the computer programmers, pipe fitters, and all that working on this for a year. Over 150 people for a year to get this $30 million plan up and running. And today is a celebration really for them. Obviously I had nothing to do with putting this plant together, me and Andy, or so obviously have we been sitting around twiddling our thumbs? No. The hard workers are putting this thing together, and we've been busy on what's next, and that's what you're going to see in 2024 is all the planning that the company and senior management and others have been working on step by step, and over here and over there, and Saskatchewan and Alberta, and dealing with the government and contractors and geologists, and
you guys have earned a good week of sleep between now and New Year's, given what you've gone through,
oh,
buddy. You
I
really
am so ready for it. I am so ready for it. You have no idea, George. But having said that, this uh, is an unbelievable accomplishment for everybody involved and all the stakeholders, and the biggest stakeholders are the guys you talk to, George. Those are our shareholders. And, we're very, very
everyone
happy to
listening,
have
everyone
accomplished this.
watching, if you listen in your car while you're walking, if you're watching on your big screen, on your laptop, on your phone, we've all played a role. it takes crumbs to make a cake, and it takes a lot of ingredients to make a cake. And you're right, the loyal shareholders who have been there for a long time and will be for a long time. It's a great day for all of us, buddy. Can't wait to have you back in 2024, Dean. Get a good week's worth of sleep, because we want you back at work, buddy. Okay, we don't want you slacking as of January 1st. We'll all give you a week off here, but we want you back, at the well, all right, at the Helium, and growing this company. But thanks for joining us today, buddy.
Hey, thanks a lot, George.
For anybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, or your favorite podcast platform, to Dean Nawada. He's the manager of corporate development at Royal Helium, trades in Canada, RHC, trades in the US, RHCCF. Do due diligence, guys. I don't think I have to tell you much more for anybody that's new, that's been watching or listening to this, because everybody who's been around and OG, they know the story. But if you're new, do due diligence. If you believe in the future of where space launches are going, and you've seen how Royal Helium has embedded themselves in that supply chain, then hopefully discovered your next amazing small cap helium company. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. See you all in 2024.
Hey Small Cap fam, I hope you loved this interview because more than a dozen people were involved in its production for the sole purpose of making you happy. If so, can you take a moment to support both our awesome guest company and Agora.com? Your engagement means the world to us. First, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up by tapping that like button. It's a small gesture that helps this interview reach even more potential investors to discover today's guest. Second, we would love to hear your feedback on this interview, so please leave a comment below. Be sure to keep it clean, but feel free to poke fun at George. If you loved what you heard on today's video and want to dig into our guest company right away, take a look at the links in the description below. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to never miss another great Agora.com small cap video. Thank you so much. We couldn't do any of this without you. Make sure to come back soon.